Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to this webinar. This is a webinar about the Moving Forward project. This is a project that I'm very passionate about, and I'm here to tell you all about it. So the Moving Forward project, what is it? So this project, the goal of this project is to provide resources for individuals who are formerly incarcerated and to assist them so that they will more successfully re-enter society. That sounds very simple. It's actually quite complex, but as I've said before, I feel like we have to start somewhere. I got the idea to do this project, actually, as we do in librarianship, we don't steal, we borrow from other libraries. I went to a couple of other trainings and I heard about, there was a program in New Jersey. They did a project called Fresh Start at Your Library. It was a reentry program. And in California, they do a program called Ready Access, and it is a reentry program. So I took their ideas and tweaked it to make it my own. And that's where we get the Moving Forward project. And I realized I failed to introduce myself. My name is Shellie Ziegler, and I'm a library consultant here at the Mississippi Library Commission. So as I said before, the goal of the Moving Forward project is to assist libraries in offering resources to help people who have been released from correctional facilities and help them rejoin their community with greater success. More often than not, when people are released from correctional facilities, there are many barriers to their success. And I'll talk about just a few of those. So the number one barrier is the stigma of being incarcerated. Oftentimes people cannot see the person that they are today beyond their offense record, beyond what they did to be incarcerated. They oftentimes have trouble obtaining stable housing and are more apt to experience homelessness. And again, these are generalizations, but they do tend to be true. They do tend to have a limited education, which makes it difficult for them to compete in the job market. That leads me to my next comment. And not only does their education make it difficult for them to compete fairly in the job market, but the stigma of having been incarcerated makes it very difficult for them to compete fairly in the job market. And then oftentimes, depending on how long they have been incarcerated, they may have lost family members and friends, and they may not have that social support that we all take for granted. And when they come out, it's very difficult to find their way. Getting out of jail or prison is a wonderful thing after you have served time, but it's a very stressful time. I read somewhere, and I can't remember the exact figure, so please be kind, but it was something to the effect that the number of choices that the average person in regular society makes on an average day, like just choices like, am I gonna stop and get a coffee? Am I gonna stop at Target on my lunch break? Am I gonna go here? Just regular little choices we make every day. We make several thousand choices a day. the number of choices that someone who is incarcerated makes is under 15 choices a day. So imagine going from making a very limited number of choices a day to going to a life where, yes, it's joyful to be out of prison or jail, but then you have all these decisions you have to make. That's must be very stressful. So you have all of these barriers, and then you have the stress of all these choices. So I think I've beat that to death. Okay. So let's talk about incarceration in Mississippi. And this is kind of a big one, and I'll just stick to the facts here. We have 5 state prisons. We have the one in Pearl, the Central Miss Correctional Facility. We have the big one that everyone knows about, our state penitentiary in Parchman. We have one in Leakesville, our South Miss Correctional Facility. And we have our Walnut Grove Correctional Facility and our Marshall County Correctional Facility in Holly Springs. Then we have many others that could not be put on one slide. And you can obtain information and the names and locations of all of these. We have 2 private facilities and many other what they call our regional facilities. But if you go to mdoc.ms.gov, you can find out a lot more about all of our correctional facilities. And then just to give you an indication of the number of people that we do incarcerate in the state of Mississippi, we incarcerate currently at a rate of 1,031 people for every 100,000 people. Currently, the United States, just to put that in perspective a bit, the United States is the country that imprisons the most people of all countries, and they imprison at a rate of 664 people for every 100,000 people. So Mississippi incarcerates at a higher rate than even the United States does. So the United States is the country that incarcerates the most, and we as a state incarcerate even higher than the highest country. And that's all I'll say about that. But what that means is that we have more people who are decarcerated. So we have more people to serve. We have a lot more marginalized people that are coming out that we need to think about from a library services perspective. And I got this information. I gave you my resource here from the prisonpolicy.org website. And if anyone has any more questions about this information that I obtained, I'm more than happy to talk further about that. Because I could talk a lot about how we incarcerate people in this country, in this state, but I will not. So let's talk about how we can help libraries. And we already do. So I want to be positive about this. We already do so much, but we can do better. Most libraries have wonderful computer classes, but I want us to start thinking about how we are presenting these programs to the public. Can we think more and be more decisive about the language we're using, and be more inclusive. When we have our computer classes, for example, can we use more terminology and maybe have a flyer that says something like, for those that haven't used technology in many years, you don't have to be super obvious about what you're saying, or you can be obvious. You can even have a computer class for those who are re-entering into society. But I had watched this one video on YouTube. It was a person who had been incarcerated for a long time, and he came out and he was taking a computer class in a public library. And it started, of course, this very basic class. And it started with, okay, so you take your mouse and you do this. And what we think of as basic may not be basic to someone who's been incarcerated for 20 years. And he was talking in the video, and he was a very charming man, but it was so funny because he said, and I was like, mouse, what were they referring to? He had no idea what that even meant. So I encourage you to take yourself outside of yourself and think of someone who might have been incarcerated for many years and who might have no idea, who might have been put into the system before what we know is just everyday technology terminology even was common knowledge. It's just an idea. Something else is about our book clubs. I know that some book clubs that we have in some libraries are very popular. Some of like the cozy mystery book clubs and things of that nature. And this is something we have talked about in other trainings that we've offered here at the Library Commission, but look at making your book clubs more diverse. Look at making some of the book club choices, like the books that you read, more diverse. Still have your cozy mysteries that are popular maybe at your 2 o'clock on Wednesday group, but maybe offer choices that might be more appealing to a different population. Just an idea. And I'm not saying I even know what those choices might be. I'm just saying, let's start thinking about that. Story time. Let's start thinking about how to make that more appealing to families, and perhaps not always having it during the daytime. Maybe have it as a family reading time and having it in the evenings and on the weekends. Let's think outside of just your stay-at-home moms and your stay-at-home dads that are available on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Maybe try it at another time in the evenings, on the weekends, and see if people are going to respond. And like anything, and this is something that I've talked about in my programming training, and I know that other programmers have talked about this as well. It might not take the first few times. You know, no one may come the very first few times, but that doesn't mean you can't keep trying and keep offering it and get the word out. What I'm trying to say is let's get away from these silos of our programming and be more inclusive. So, okay. Let's talk about representing your community, which is something we in library world talk about all the time when we're talking about building your collection, having programs. Your collection, your programming should be a representation of your entire community. Everyone that comes into your library should be able to find books, information about themselves. They should be able to see themselves. No one wants to come into a library and feel like they don't belong, like an alien. So think about your collection in maybe a new way. Do you have information for people and about people and by people who have been incarcerated? There are many memoirs and books that have been written by people who've been incarcerated. There are many books about reentering society, and here's some how-tos and here's some tips. And you might have never thought about, maybe these are some things that you should have in your collection. And it's okay if this is something you haven't thought about. One of the things I always believe in is just because it's something you haven't done before, you know, when you know better, you do better. So think about it now. And this is what my project is all about. I think that this is something we need to start addressing if we have not already been addressing it. So here's a start. So this project, moving forward, is a collection of 18 books. Every library system is going to receive a collection of 18 different books. On the screen is the master plan. I really like this one. I haven't read all of them, but I did get the titles from other libraries that have done reentry programs. So I didn't just pick them on a whim. I had a good resource for them. In every book, there is the moving forward sticker. And on the sticker, it's kind of small print, but it has the mission of the program. And also, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but it has the link to the Mississippi Reentry Guide, which is really cool and helpful. And I'm going to show it to you in a minute. But that's going to be on the inside of every book. So, these are the 18 books. There's all kinds of different books here. What I wanted to have are books that would assist people who are re-entering society, not just books about, oh, well, here's a memoir from someone who was also incarcerated and this is their story. And that's nice. And there's a bunch of those, but there's also like a GED prep book. Here's how to fix your credit if you have bad credit. Here's how to have a really good job interview. Here's some tips. Here's how to write a really good resume, because a huge barrier, as I said earlier, is the getting a job. And that is one of the big reasons why a lot of people end up back in jail or prison, is because they have a hard time gaining good employment and having that kind of, steady scheduled life. So there's a lot of employment assistance books. There's also a computer basic book. And I like it because it's called the Absolute Beginner's Guide. And that was recommended from one of the other programs. So, and there's also a reentry source book. I don't have it right here, but it's a real thick thick one. So this is just a start. And I just hope that these will help get you thinking about maybe these are some of the types of books you should have in your collection if you don't already. And then I think my next slide is, yeah, so here's a copy of the wonderful sticker. I created it on Canva. Canva is so wonderful. It's so cool and so easy to use. I called it Moving Forward because I thought that was it's a very optimistic way to look at when you're changing your life and you're doing something new and positive. So the Moving Forward project provides resources for the formerly incarcerated. And then it says, visit the Mississippi Reentry Guide for more resources for your community. So that way, when anyone checks out these materials, they'll see this sticker, and if they should be in a position where they have been incarcerated or they are friends or family of someone who have, they will be able to assist them. So, and now I'm going to show you the guide. Okay, so this is the Mississippi Reentry Guide. It's msreentryguide.com. It's a very simple website. It is fabulous. It is it's for anyone here. I'll show you, take you to this tab here. It is for the purpose of the guide is essential information and resources about services for, they call it ex-offenders and those that support them. So family members, any, parole officers. I'm going to put libraries on there because they come to you for any type of resources. And it is wonderful. I'm going to tell you right now that all public libraries in the state are already listed in the guide. But if you see that your information is incorrect, you can go down here to this agency update and let them know what about your listing is incorrect. So if they've got your website wrong or any of your contact information wrong, you can let them know. So it's broken up into national, statewide, and county. The most helpful, I feel, is going to be the county resources. So you see they have our state, and it's broken down by county. So if let's just go to Jefferson County. I've actually not looked at Jefferson County, so I don't know where it'll be. So let's see, I'll try not to scroll real fast so you don't get sick. So and it's all in alphabetical order, the subject matters of the resources. I like that they always have, like, if you have a local WIN job center, they'll have that listed. Health department, mental health. They don't have a public library listed for Jefferson County. That disturbs me. I don't know why. Let's see. Let's go to Lincoln County. Employment, food, health, mental health, public library listed there. Interesting. But what I want to urge you to see is how this guide is helpful if you haven't been aware of this guide before, which probably a lot of you haven't. It's helpful to not only those who have been incarcerated, but probably anyone who needed to know about some type of social service. So I think it would be extremely helpful to have this bookmarked at your reference desk or at your circulation desk, because this would be extremely helpful for someone who wanted to apply for disability or wanted to know about mental health services, whatnot. I find this whole guide super helpful and has tons of information that we as librarians would be giving out, that you wouldn't have to go to, your search engine and look up. Let me take you to the statewide one. So as a state, let's say someone came to you and they needed to get a copy of their birth certificate. Let's say they've been incarcerated for a long time and they come out and they don't have a lot of family support and they don't know where their birth certificate is and they need it to do a lot of things. You would go to the Vital Records Department and this is where they would go and do that. But that wouldn't just apply to someone who's incarcerated. That would apply to a lot of people. A lot of people lose their birth certificate and don't know how to get a copy of it. So there's that. So I'll just scroll down here and let you guys just look at this. So I just want you to see how helpful this is. And there's a way you can go to, if you go to documents, you can download this. You can print this off. It's like 93 pages because I printed it off one time. But anyway, and then you can also contact them. They are here in Jackson. I don't know why you'd want to contact them, but if you wanted to partner with them or talk with them about what they do, here you go. But I just think it's a fabulous resource for a lot of things that not a lot of people know about. And it's here and you should be using it. So, but this slide tells about what I stole it, I borrowed it from the reentry guide. And basically it's just saying who the reentry guide is for. And as I said, it's for just about everybody. It even says researchers, because there's so much contact information. And what I really like is what it says at the bottom. Anyone interested in advocating for, serving, or learning about reentry in Mississippi. That just speaks to my heart. So anyway, there you go. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about what your library can do with these books that we're providing for you. You can take this curated collection and you can make a simple display. You can make a display. You can call it Moving Forward if you want. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can use the logo. I'm happy to send you I don't know the name, a GIF, a copy of my thing I made. And you're more than happy to do whatever you want with it. I have not trademarked it or copyrighted it. You can use it, but you don't have to. You can call it whatever you want and explain that it is for people who have been incarcerated and are now decarcerated. You can promote the reentry guide. That would be a really simple way to use these books. I would also think it'd be a really neat thing to do to start representing more reentry services information in memoirs in your collection. Maybe do a very, casual audit of your collection, looking at, do you have any other information in your collection for people who have been incarcerated? Are these 18 books the only books that you are going to have? Maybe you want to use this as a jumping point to start adding more. So that would be a real basic way to use what we're providing you. But what if you want to do more? What if I have inspired you? You could start collaborating with prison librarians and prisoner library services. I know that there are a few libraries in the state that already go out to correctional facilities and provide library services. They do book talks. They talk about the library services. I know not everyone is comfortable with that, but that is something that you might have staff that are comfortable with that. That's something that you might want to do. One thing that you could also do, and I'm going to make this distinction because I didn't really know the difference between a parole officer and a probation officer. A parole officers primarily, they work with individuals who are released from prison. They have served time and they have now been paroled from prison. A probation officer, they work with individuals who may or may not have served time. They may have just gone straight to probation and not have served time, but they work with those who have been released on probation. So you can also contact parole and probation officers, and you can send a simple letter with maybe some information about library services that you offer and how they would be helpful to someone who is re-entering society. You can, there is an easy way if you go to the Department of Corrections website to contact these people and get their information. So that would be an easy way to do some outreach and contact these people. You could create a resource guide specifically for your local community using that Mississippi reentry guide that I just showed you. And you can also, this is going a really big step above, but if you have the passion and you really want to do this, it would, I'm sure, be very welcome. Start providing some reentry to society classes for those who are decarcerated and their family and friends, because sometimes, a lot of times, their family and friends don't know how to help them either. So working with them to help with help them with, hey, like, here's some, we're going to talk about how to do basic job interviews. Here's how we're going to have a class on, okay, so now you're re-entering society. We're going to see if we can bring in some employers who actually employ people who have been incarcerated. There's a lot of ideas, and I would like to say here that I am happy to work with anyone who wants to start brainstorming on maybe providing some of these reentry classes, because I did obtain some ideas from those other two programs that I spoke about at the beginning, but I didn't want to go into great detail here because it is something that would take up a lot of time and resources. But if someone wanted to do that, I am happy and thrilled to work with anyone who wants to do that. So there I am. I am here to help. This topic is something that I am professionally interested in. I think it's something that we as a profession have not focused on enough. But I also feel like I should disclose that I also have a personal investment. I am a family member of a person who is currently incarcerated, not in this state, but in another state. They have been incarcerated for over 30 years. So I just feel like I should disclose that I do have a personal investment as well. But this is a professional passion of mine. So here is my contact information. Like I said, I'm happy to talk with anyone who wants to pursue this further or has any questions. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar, and thank you for your interest.